I was 15 when my mom told me to step out of the family photo, said I didn't fit the look. She smiled brightly for the camera like it was no big deal, while I stood off to the side, doing everything I could not to cry. That night, I skipped dinner and locked myself in my room, drawing out a world where someone like me did belong. Years later, that world became real and people noticed. But she wasn't anywhere in the picture. My name's Marissa Lee, and this is the story of how my mom made me feel like an outsider in my own family, and how I went on to build a life so bold, it left her in the dark. Growing up, I didn't feel invisible, at least, not in the beginning. I was a quiet kid, sure, but I got good grades, cleaned up after myself, and never made trouble. The kind of kid who knew to keep quiet during road trips while the adults chatted up front. And for a while, that seemed to work just fine. But everything flipped when my mom, Diane, married Tom. Tom had 2 kids of his own, Kendall and Max. They were loud, always moving, and seemed to live for the spotlight. Diane used to call them a breath of fresh air, like they were the missing puzzle piece she never knew she needed. Suddenly, our home was plastered with photos of sports tournaments, dance recitals, and picture-perfect beach days. My drawings, the ones I had framed and hung in the hallway myself, started vanishing, one after the other, replaced with glossy pictures of the new family. No one ever mentioned it, not even when I brought it up. Diane loved posting about us online. She coordinated outfits, planned fake smile family outings, and captioned everything with hashtags. But I was rarely in the pictures, either cropped out, stuck behind someone, or captured mid-blink, looking like an afterthought. Once, I finally worked up the courage to ask her, "Do you not want me in the photos?" I asked, while she was scrolling through filters. She let out a long sigh like I was being impossible. "Marissa, don't be so dramatic. You're way too sensitive." That was her go-to. Too sensitive. Like having feelings was some kind of flaw. Like I should just be thankful to exist quietly on the edge of her curated world. After that, I gave up trying to understand it. Holidays were the worst. Tom's kids got shiny bikes and new tablets. I'd unwrap socks or notebooks. One year, they each opened matching jackets from some trendy outdoor brand while I got a cheap notebook with my name misspelled on the cover. Diane just smiled and said, "You like drawing, don't you?" I wish the floor would open up and swallow me whole. It wasn't even about the gifts. It was the way she acted like nothing was wrong, like I was the problem for not faking excitement over a clearance notebook while everyone else popped open round 2 of presents. But not everyone ignored it. My grandma, Diane's mom, lived a couple towns over in a little cottage with wind chimes and the scent of cinnamon tea floating through the air. Her name was Ruth. She had streaks of silver in her hair and soft, steady hands. She called me Riss and used to say I had my grandfather's hands, steady, strong, meant for creating. She never needed me to explain how I felt. She just saw me. And that was enough. When home felt like too much, I started spending weekends at Grandma Ruth's. Diane didn't seem to mind. Honestly, she looked relieved, one less person to fit into her filtered, Instagram-ready life. At Grandma's, I could just breathe. She noticed how I was always sketching faces, buildings, fashion ideas, and one day she asked if I'd ever heard of graphic design. I told her I hadn't even heard the term before. The next weekend, she signed me up for a free intro class at the local library. Then another. And another. "Don't let anyone shrink your world, Riss," she told me one evening while we sat beneath a blanket watching old movies in black and white. "You're bigger than they want you to believe." Diane never asked where I was going. Never once asked what I was working on. If she noticed my skills growing, she didn't mention it. One day, she tossed me a grocery list and said, "Be useful and pick this stuff up. I'm taking Kendall to her modeling audition." I glanced down at the shopping list. Shampoo, snacks, candles, all brand names, naturally. Diane shoved a $10 bill into my hand like that was somehow going to cover everything. When I pointed out that it wouldn't be enough, she rolled her eyes. "Then use your own money. You're always at your grandma's anyway. I'm sure she spoils you." And that was the moment it clicked. Diane didn't see me as her daughter. Not really. To her, I was just one more task to juggle, a misfit piece that didn't match the image she was trying so hard to present. And if I didn't fit the aesthetic, then I didn't count. That's when I started journaling more. I'd stay up late sketching, letting the pencil speak the feelings I couldn't. I didn't know what my escape would look like yet, but I was already building the map in my head. Grandma Ruth kept pushing me forward. She told me to save every single drawing, every sketch, every spark of an idea. Someday, Riss, you'll want to show the world what they missed, she said. And she was right. But back then, I was just a kid with a cheap pencil and a chest full of ache. I wasn't looking for revenge. I just wanted to belong. By high school, I finally understood I wasn't just ignored, I was invisible. Diane had mastered the art of smiling straight through me. If I brought home an A, she'd nod like I'd said I emptied the dishwasher. But when Kendall made honor roll, oh, that was front-page news on her Facebook feed. You'd think the girl had cured cancer. Kendall and Max were Tom's kids, my step-siblings. When Diane married him, it was like she hit the reset button on our whole identity. Suddenly, we weren't the Lees anymore. We were the Bradfords. They were, anyway. My last name didn't make the cut. I didn't protest. I just faded further into the background. They went on ski trips every winter, beach getaways in the summer. I'd ask why I wasn't invited and get answers like, you don't like the cold or you burn too easily. Eventually, Diane stopped pretending. It's just easier when it's the four of us, she finally said. So while they posed for golden hour beach photos, I stayed behind. But not at home. I'd pack a bag and spend the weekend with Grandma Ruth. It was strange to think she was Diane's mother. You'd never guess it. She lived in a little yellow house with creaky floorboards and the comforting smell of lavender always in the air. Her hands were soft and always smelled like soap, and she never once asked me to smile for a picture. She'd just hand me a plate of cookies and say, let it out. And I would. That's where I really began to draw, like really create. I had this old iPad, probably a second-hand reject from one of Diane's regift stashes. I paired it with a $9 clearance bin stylus and started sketching logos, magazine covers, fashion ads, anything that made me feel like I was building something that couldn't be erased or cropped out of a photo. One Saturday afternoon, Grandma Ruth walked in and sat beside me while I was designing a poster for a made-up coffee brand. She stared at it for a minute, quietly, then said, "Have you ever thought about doing this professionally?" I shrugged. "It's just something I like doing." She didn't push. She just said, "Save everything you make. We're going to need it someday." And that's how it started. Every weekend, I'd bring my digital sketches to Grandma's. She'd print them out on her old printer, tuck them into clear sleeves, and slide them into this big, worn leather binder. She called it Marissa's Book of Brilliance. At first, I thought it was silly. Later, it would become everything. In my junior year of high school, Grandma enrolled me in a digital design course at the downtown community center. Diane had already shut down the idea, said it was too expensive, right after she spent over $400 on a designer purse for Kendall's birthday. So Grandma paid for it herself. She even arranged a ride for me so Diane wouldn't suspect anything. I think, deep down, she always knew I'd need a way out. Then one afternoon, she proved it. I was sitting at her kitchen table after school, rambling about how my guidance counselor said I might be able to apply to art schools if I could pull together a strong enough portfolio. I was excited, but I kept it dialed down. I didn't want to let myself get my hopes too high. I didn't let myself hope too much. Not after Diane literally laughed when I brought up college at home. Design? That's not a real job, Marissa, she scoffed. But Grandma Ruth didn't laugh. She stood up without a word and walked into her bedroom. I heard drawers opening and closing. A few minutes later, she returned, holding a sealed envelope. She slid it across the kitchen table. "Your grandfather started a trust for your education," she said. I've been adding to it when I could. It's in your name. I was just waiting for the right moment to tell you. I sat there staring at her, speechless. You are going to college, Riss, she said with so much certainty it felt like a promise already fulfilled. And I did. I applied to 6 schools, got accepted into 3, and chose a private university 3 states away with a top-tier visual design program on a full scholarship. The acceptance letter came in this heavy, glossy envelope. Diane never opened it. She didn't even notice it in the mail piled. I left the day after graduation. No party, no photos, just me and Grandma Ruth packing my thrifted suitcase and loading it onto a Greyhound. College was the first place I ever felt like I mattered. My roommate, Layla, was the polar opposite of me, loud, wild, always moving, but she loved everything I made. One day, she showed my designs to a friend who worked at a boutique downtown. That turned into my first freelance gig, designing their seasonal lookbook. From there, the momentum built. A small ad agency brought me on part-time. Then a brand consulting firm offered me a summer internship. I worked late, pulled weekend shifts, and quietly stacked my resume while Diane posted filtered selfies of brunch with the caption, #FamilyFirst. I didn't say a word. For years later, I graduated summa cum laude. Before I even crossed the stage, I had job offers lined up. One of those offers came from CNV, this powerhouse marketing agency known for launching major fashion and lifestyle brands. Their executive director had seen my student portfolio at a national conference and emailed me directly. "Marissa," he wrote, "you have a rare gift for storytelling. Let's talk." I never told Diane. She thought I was working at a coffee shop somewhere. Instead, I quietly moved into a shoebox apartment near the agency's downtown office and started building a career no one could erase. Over the years, I climbed my way up, junior designer, art director, then creative strategist. By 27, I bought my own place. Took Grandma Ruth to Paris for her birthday. Paid off her mortgage. Adopted a dog named Pepper who wore tiny boots in the winter. Diane kept posting perfect selfies with Kendall and Max, still pretending I didn't exist. Then one Thursday morning, everything changed. I was in the break room at work, sipping bad coffee and tweaking a pitch deck when my assistant knocked. Channel 7's morning show confirmed. "You're live next week. They're featuring you in their Young Visionaries segment." I nearly dropped my mug. The segment aired the following Monday. Cozy studio lighting, friendly anchors, and me sitting on a couch talking about brand identity, storytelling, and how I went from the girl no one noticed to someone shaping how the world sees things. They even pulled up a few of my early college sketches. Grandma had saved everything, of course. The response was immediate. Comments poured in. So inspiring. "She's brilliant. Where has she been hiding?" Diane found out the way everyone else did, sitting at a brunch she was hosting for Max's new real estate license. The TV flashed to my face. I wasn't there to see it, but I like to imagine her fork paused midair. Maybe Kendall blinked. Maybe Max cracked a joke to fill the silence. Because suddenly, I wasn't invisible anymore. I was everywhere, featured in magazines, spotlighted on LinkedIn, even part of a campaign billboard in Times Square. The girl Diane once told to stay out of the picture? Yeah, she had just become the face of it. It turned into a whole creative revolution, and that was just the beginning. The message landed 3 days after the morning show aired. "Marissa, it's your mother. I'm turning 50 next month. We're having a classy brunch at Belmore Gardens. You probably haven't heard of it, very exclusive. Be there by 11 o'clock sharp. Don't embarrass me. No, how are you? No, I'm proud of you." Just a command, polished with a backhanded insult, classic Diane. I almost deleted it. Instead, I laughed. Not bitterly, just in disbelief. 13 years of silence, and her big reappearance was a brunch invitation disguised as a royal decree. That night, over chamomile tea in Grandma Ruth's kitchen, I read the message out loud. She didn't say much at first, just raised one eyebrow and asked, "So what are you bringing her?" I grinned and pulled a slim envelope from my bag. Inside was a printed certificate for a 5-star spa retreat in the Swiss Alps, private suite, mountain views, personal chef, the works. It had cost more than most people make in a month. Grandma Ruth nearly dropped her teacup. Marissa, she doesn't deserve this. Oh, I know, I said, sipping my tea calmly. I'm not giving it to her. I just want her to see what she threw away. She chuckled, shaking her head. You're your own kind of wicked, sweetheart. The day of the brunch, I wore a sleek black jumpsuit and a simple gold chain. No loud logos. No sky-high heels. Just quiet, intentional elegance, the kind that lingers after you've left the room. I arrived 5 minutes early. Belmore Gardens was exactly what I imagined. Faux luxury, lukewarm mimosas, and overpriced decor that impressed only people who hadn't seen the real thing. The hostess led me to a private garden room. Everyone was already seated: Kendall, Max, Rick, and a dozen people I hadn't seen since I was 15. Diane sat at the head of the table, drenched in sequins and self-importance. When her eyes landed on me, she blinked like she'd seen a ghost. "Oh, you actually came," she said with a forced smile. "You could have dressed up a bit more." I didn't answer. Just nodded and sat at the far end of the table. The brunch played out like a low-budget drama. Kendall gifted her a custom jewelry box. Max handed her a designer tote with her initials stitched in gold. Every gift got its moment: fake tears, dramatic gasps, applause. Then it was my turn. I pulled a small, perfectly wrapped box from my purse and set it in front of her. No speech. No flair. Just a quiet, happy birthday. Diane squinted at it like it had insulted her. This better not be one of those minimalist gifts people post about. Honestly, Marissa, you show up looking basic, take a taxi here, and now this. She didn't even unwrap it. Just pushed the box back toward me and muttered, "You always had a talent for disappointment." Silence fell across the table. Even Kendall looked uncomfortable. She reached forward, brushed a crumb off the top, and said quietly, "It's a certificate for a luxury retreat. Switzerland. The kind of place people go when they need to forget the noise." Diane paled. "You're lying." "I was going to give it to you," I said, sliding the box back into my purse. "But now I realize you never wanted me. You just wanted what I could give you. You always have." I stood, adjusted my jacket, and looked her in the eye one last time. "You told me to stay out of the picture." So I did. But I didn't disappear, I got sharper. And then I walked out. No one followed. The cab was already waiting. As we pulled away, I saw Diane rush to the front entrance, phone in hand. She was dialing. I didn't answer. For the next 2 weeks, her messages flooded in. "Let's talk. You overreacted. We're still family. Kendall needs help with her personal brand. Maybe you two can work together. We're redoing the kitchen, could use a creative eye." Each message more transparent than the last. I blocked her on everything. That didn't stop her. She showed up at Grandma Ruth's doorstep, full of crocodile tears and demands. Grandma didn't even raise her voice. She simply said, "You gave up your daughter a long time ago. Don't act surprised that she's not yours to call back now." That night, I sat on the porch with Grandma, watching the city lights flicker between the trees. I reached into my bag and pulled out the Swiss retreat certificate. "I changed the name," I said. Grandma blinked. "What?" "It's yours now," I smiled. "You always wanted to see the Alps." Her mouth fell open. "Marissa, I don't need this." I reached for her hand and held it gently. "No, you don't need it. But you deserve it. You saw me when no one else did. You let me draw. You called me brilliant. You saved everything. That's what moms do." She cried. And I let her. For the first time in forever, I felt whole, not in a flashy, post-worthy kind of way, but in that steady, rooted way that tells you you're safe now. Diane will keep telling people I'm ungrateful, that I turned my back on her, that I owe her something, but I don't. I owe everything to the woman who made room for me when the world kept saying, "Not now. Not you." That family photo might have looked flawless without me in it. But the life I built? It's perfect because she wasn't in it.